want you to enjoy your lunch. It's a delicious lunch. Thank you very much, Raul Momo from Witherspoon Bread Company. We really appreciate it. Don't be shy. There's still some more on the table, and Raul told me he doesn't want to carry anything back across the street. So please continue to eat. We're going to start and discuss summaries of our tables, and this is a participatory part, as they all have been. We're looking for them. Thank you. We're going to need a little help from the town and gown people.
I'll fill it in.
Okay, Mark. All right. Mark's on top of his game.
Who's Mark? What's your affiliation?
What we're going to do is we're going to have the moderators of each table discuss the major themes. You will not hear every single topic that came up, but you're going to hear the things that came up 2 and 3 times, and with some discussion from the moderator's point of view of the general trend and future direction that these issues might bring to bear. So I'm going to start off with Catherine Kish and the retail environment.
We had 3 absolutely lively. It was terrific. And Marvin Bresler, as always, managed to say something succinct and wonderful that we put right at the top of our list, which is that our task, the frustration of our task, is to somehow balance the village nostalgia, be looking back through rose-colored glasses at how wonderful it used to be, with real-world economics. And this is the real crux of what we're dealing with in the retail environment. Big word, affordability. Everyone said prices are too high for basic services if you can find basic services. Rents are too high, therefore driving prices higher. Affordable cost of, there's no affordable housing in town. 40% of our employees come from Bucks County, those who work in the corporate world here. So the question is affordability. How do we make this town more affordable for all different kinds of people? We also talked about the different Princetons, the different populations of Princeton. You have the residents who live in the borough. Then you have the residents who live in the township. Then you draw a bigger circle. You have people like me who come from across Route 1, heaven forbid. And we're the ones who think of this as our town center, our recreation and cultural town center. So that circle goes all the way to Route 130 on the east. It goes all the way to Route 31 on the west. It goes to at least 518 on the north, and at least Quaker Bridge Road on the south. So that's another group that thinks of themselves as living in Princeton. Then we have tourists, lots of them. Kristen gave us the statistic of 650,000 visitors to Princeton University. Now, those people could be coming to the McCarter, they could be coming to sports events. You're counted in some ways multiple times, but I'll bet you there are still at least a few 100,000 discrete people who fit in that category. There are certainly the Princeton students. They are residents here. And then there are people like historic tourists who come to visit Morven, who come to see that Grover Cleveland is buried in the Princeton Cemetery. So we have all of these people who think of Princeton as an interesting destination, an interesting downtown. These are all the people who visit the retailers. Everyone who'd lived here a long time lamented the loss of certain stores. Woolworths, everybody mentioned Woolworths. Erkin's Hardware, everyone mentioned that. The shoe repair shop, all of these services and sort of basic stores. The classic question comes up, where do you buy a needle and thread? Now I say, who on earth sews anymore? But apparently some people in Princeton really do. And that exemplifies the kind of things that you used to find at places like F.W. Woolworth's. One of the things that I heard that's a real change from when we first started talking about this 5 and 6 years ago is the fact that the shopping center is now seen as part of downtown. It is a viable downtown shopping alternative. In the old days, people used to say, downtown, that's Massachusetts. It's not the shopping center. Well, now it's the shopping center. And now the way that shopping center used to be treated is the way we talk about the big box stores out on Route 1. One of the things we heard that was very, very powerful was that retailers need a little love. They need a little encouragement. They need the borough to want them. They need the township to want them. And in wanting them, make it a little bit easier to do the things you need to do to start a business. This is kind of a fast tracking on permits. This is not making it so doggone difficult to open a retail establishment. And, you know, some people may say, well, a special improvement district, a SID, is the answer. We had comparisons to Red Bank, we had comparisons to Westfield. Something good. The parking situation actually has improved. People are using the garage, people are carrying the smart card and using it, and many of the retailers reported many fewer complaints about parking, so that's great. One of the requests that came up is an improvement in downtown transportation, potentially from parking lots that would be peripheral and potentially from the dinky. People said, move the dinky closer, don't move it further away. And something that we heard at all three sessions once again is that the university is not being supported enough from the points of view of the citizens who reported. Many of those citizens were not retailers, but they felt that the university should be more supportive of the retail community. So, any other thoughts that were big from the people who participated in retail that you want to get up here? Okay. Oh, what, Ann?
Local serving businesses. You mentioned that, I think you touched on it.
Service businesses, yes. Oh, and one thing that we did here that was very important, and Bill said this from Whole Earth. He said there really are over half the businesses here in town are locally owned, or local businesses as opposed to chain businesses. But the perception is that most of them are chain businesses. And that's kind of an important piece. Rick Weiss made the comment that maybe what is happening is that there are some changes in the services offered, and so people are saying, well, if the shoemaker has gone away, that means the local business owner has gone away. That is not necessarily true, but maybe local businesses, in order to survive, are not offering those same services that they used to because you all don't really buy those services from them. They have to sell to the customer they have.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Now we will turn to working and living in town and the various conundrums those pose, and I want to turn this over to Peter Kahn.
Okay, let me try to do this pretty quickly. I think there was general agreement, maybe not total agreement, on the proposition that we began our discussions with, that it is not very healthy for a community, any community, to be importing most of the people who provide the essential public services to the community, thus police, teachers, nurses, and so on, because those people cannot afford to live in the community they serve. So if there was broad agreement that that's not healthy, I don't think there was much agreement on solutions to that. We talked some about subsidized low-cost housing, the COAH, but that does not permit local preference. So the community cannot direct that housing be made available, for example, to nurses at Princeton Hospital. That led to some discussion in at least a couple of the sessions of what about a community housing trust that could subsidize housing for various income levels, or public servants, but of course, where would the money come from? And predictably, everyone looked to Princeton University. Which, by the way, there were also suggestions that the university should provide more housing for its lowest wage employees. There was some discussion of the Hispanic community and the fact that it seems to be largely unrepresented in the town politically or otherwise, even as it is probably the fastest growing community in town. We talked a little bit about commuter issues and the effect of the proposed move of the Dinky station. There were several views on that. One is it would make it more difficult for commuters. The other was that depending on other interconnected public transportation, it could actually make it easier. There were a couple of paradoxes that came up. The paradox of an aging community. Even as various people pointed out, it is increasingly difficult for retirees to afford to live in the community. And then the paradox of people who want a walkable community. At the same time, others worry about increasing population density in or near the center of Princeton. And then finally, there is a tendency in all of our sessions, I think, to see the university being the biggest and richest institution in the community, a tendency to want the university to take more leadership, financial or otherwise, in solving community problems, in part in its own enlightened self-interest. I think that sums it up.
Any questions for Peter and the people at the working and living tables? Mary Ellen.
Just a comment. I don't think we should laugh when we say that we look to the university to help on these problems. I think it's a very serious obligation on their part to provide for their employees, since they're one of the largest employers in the county.
Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Yes, sir.
I didn't voice this idea, but someone else at the table mentioned the idea that somehow the rise in property values in Princeton could be harnessed in some way, taxing people's profits from sale of their houses to support affordable housing.
The gentleman suggested that someone brought up that the rise in Princeton real estate values, property taxes could be reduced by taxing somehow I assume the net increase in the additional recoup of higher sales price. I suppose that works in a booming market. That seems to have turned slightly, if not south, flattened out lately, so that might be a sporadic solution, but maybe not a long-term solution. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Town and Gown, it has organized on their own poster, but we're going to let them have a bite of lunch because they've been working hard. So we're going to jump over to parking and transportation. One of the main sentiments of the people at our table was that the people of downtown come first and cars come second. So in any consideration of issues that relate to downtown development and downtown growth and the quality of life of downtown, we come first and cars follow. In fact, as the people at the retail environment discussed, a number of people believe now that there is no parking problem. Turned out these are all people who use the parking garage. There are some people who still believe there's a parking problem. Those are the people who would, in their ideal world, love to pull up to the store in which they want to go purchase something and park in front, run inside, buy their item, run back out, hop in their car and drive off. That's a condition you find in suburban strip malls. We've largely left that scenario. And we don't believe that that's going to happen here again. We do believe that there's an emerging network of strategies of satellite parking facilities that are employed by major employers in town that have been forced to address the parking problem. The hospital, for example, has a successful internally developed strategy for parking their employees and staff at remote sites and bringing them to the hospital in shuttles so that the patients get primary preference in the parking lot and garage at the hospital site itself. Princeton University has a similar network that they have in place and are committed to developing down the road. We believe that there was consensus at the table that that is a good strategy that should be augmented and developed down the road, possibly including getting the major employers in town to work together on a sympathetic network where each business doesn't have to start up their own satellite parking shuttle system. A problem came up in the discussion of the proposed Princeton Borough jitney service that should be launched sometime within the next year. And the problem was a simple one. It's that the jitney doesn't go to the next town over, which happens to be called Princeton Township. Princeton Township and Princeton Borough, two towns separated by a common name. The jitney will not go to the shopping center. A lot of people believe we should find some way to resolve amongst ourselves a way in which this jitney system could connect to a series of other points that are not presently proposed. Some people believe the jitney should be tried on a modest startup basis and that it should have limited run. Other people believe that it should be started up in an ideal configuration. Obviously, this is something that will be a discussion that will work itself out within the next year, so everyone should pay attention on that issue. As I said, there's a lot of discussion about combining the various shuttle networks, maybe even the municipal shuttle and the employee shuttles and business shuttles. Certain businesses along the Route 1 corridor operate shuttles. Other businesses within the township operate shuttles. There were significant people that were upset about the reversal of the library parking policy. This is a policy issue that needs to be sorted out amongst ourselves. It doesn't require building another garage. They're upset that the original deal has now been negated. So this is important to a number of people, specifically the township residents who come here to park next door and go to the library. The dinky is loved by most people, but everyone believes it needs some functional improvements. Some people believe that it should travel farther into town. Not a lot of people believe it should not travel as far into town as it presently does. A number of people believe that its functionality, the cycle of service, the repetition of the route, a lot of people believe it should not travel as far into town as it presently does. A number of people believe that its functionality, the cycle of service, the repetition of the route should be improved. There are problems with regulations about this, but nonetheless people believe that government should find a way to make the dinky run better. A lot of people believe that there should be appropriate bicycle networks in town, but some people believe that the existing conditions in a real world view are not that bad and that we have to develop better signage, better training for bicyclists, better training for our youth, and better training for our drivers on how they coexist on the same roadbed. If you all remember 15, 20 years ago, you crossed Nassau Street at your peril. And then we decided to institute these little crosswalks and little signs that say, you know what, pedestrians get to go first. And for the first 5 years, drivers tried to run them down. But finally, they got the idea that drivers have to stop. And now, I can largely step out on this crosswalk here in front of the library. I do check both ways. I'm not a fool, but I'm not really afraid that I'm going to get run down on the street. A similar type of training in this population could happen with the bicycle and driving community. But we have no signs, we have no ability to explain to everybody what the rules of the road are. Most people don't understand which borough sidewalks you're allowed to ride a bicycle on and which you aren't. A philosophical issue came up about parking and transportation. The future will bring limits. The future will not allow us to enjoy the immediacy of parking and having a vehicle at our beck and call every time we want it. How will we handle these limits? What trade-off and decisions will we make? That is in large part the purpose of this entire type of exercise. To make the shuttle or the jitney a success, we believe 4 things are important. It must be fun. I know that sounds odd, but it should be enjoyable. It should be efficient. It should be reliable. And of course, it should be cheap, if not free. And finally, we learned some interesting things this morning that even I've lived here for a long time and a graduate of the university didn't know. For example, you can park in university lots on the weekend. They don't mind. There are a lot of things that newcomers to town who've only been here a few years said in the discussions at our table, oh, I didn't know that was an option. Not speaking specifically about that, but other issues. We need to develop a better way to communicate the things that are already presently available to us that we've either never known, or we've happened to have forgotten, or they've somehow been shuffled aside in the vast amounts of information we need to process. And this connects to developing possibly this signage system for explaining what options are for parking. Many towns you come in and there's signs at the beginning of towns what parking options are available. These are the issues that came up at our table. Any other comments from people at the parking and transportation table? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. One of the issues that is highlighted there has to do with commuters who go to New York, who would very much like to be able to either ride to the Dinky or ride in their cars to Princeton Junction and find a place to park. If you don't go at 6 a.m. in the morning, you can't do it.
Yes,
and
there was...
that's
yes, that's correct. There was a significant... Okay. There's significant discussion about the needs of commuters, both the commuters from the Dinky and commuters... You got to turn that off, Shelley. And the commuters from West Windsor. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd just like to expand on the library parking, the revocation of the free 2 hours of parking and now limited to only 30 minutes. I called the Princeton Township Budget Office recently, and I was told that the budget of Princeton Township is approximately $34 million. The cost of the parking for the township and the borough is $101,000, $70,000 paid by the township and the rest paid by the borough. $70,000 out of $34 million is 0.22%, or less than 1/4%. So I'm still kind of puzzled why this privilege or responsibility was taken away and limited to only 30 minutes. Leslie Berger has recently reported in the Town Topics that because of the parking change, the attendance at the library is down, revenues are down, and she has a fear that the parking situation change will decrease attendance to the library. that people are calling up the librarians and telling them to hold their book at the front desk, they run in, check it out, and leave. They're not browsing, they're not spending any money at renting DVDs as they had previously. What I would suggest is that, I suggested this to Leslie Berger and to Catherine McGavran, that a petition should be placed here in the library for township residents and township borough residents that printed to sign. I would demand the 2-hour free parking be reinstituted. There's absolutely no economic reason to have taken it away. And if we could bring a few thousand signatures to Phyllis Marchand and Mildred Troutman to show them that this was a very bad decision, maybe they would revoke it. And I also think I would urge all people of the township and the borough to call these mayor's offices and leave messages for their administrators or their aides that they would like to have the 2-hour free parking reinstituted, and to find out why they took it away in the first place. Thank you.
A quick note on that is that my recollection, and other people recall, that that was actually a promise that was made when there was a whole decision about whether the library would be located in the borough or the township. So it's more than...
It's still a puzzle why they revoked it. I don't know why they revoked it.
They don't want to tell. They don't want to tell. Simple as that.
Okay, I don't want to put Councilman Goldfarb on the spot, but we do have an elected official here. He's willing, so let's welcome him.
I think you can save yourself the trouble of talking to borough elected representatives, because we are willing and have been willing continuously to continue what had been the status quo of 2-hour free parking. We told the township that on a number of occasions. We said we would also be willing to consider 1 hour of free parking, or we would be willing to consider no free parking at all. The township chose the no free parking option. So any comment should be directed at the township.
Okay, anybody else? Bill.
Was the NJT bus plan mentioned in the report?
Yes, we did discuss. We can only use one of these mics at a time. Yes, we did discuss the New Jersey Bus Rapid Transit at our table. It's a proposal that some of you have seen. It's been developed by the state and county. It's looming in the distance. We don't know exactly what the immediacy is. I don't know that I could say that there was any consensus amongst our groups of whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, an indifferent thing. Most people felt that it shouldn't be used as a reason to jettison the dinghy, although some people disagree. And some people are concerned if the bus rapid transit will actually be rapid or not.
Kevin, we also talked about more curb cuts for the disabled.
Yes, and one other issue that came up, it's very difficult for disabled people to park on the street downtown. There are a few spaces in the garage. There's a couple spaces on Palmer Square in front of the post office. I believe that's largely it. And there was belief from one of our sessions that those should be increased so it'll be easier for disabled people to get out of their cars and maneuver a block or so, given that we've spent so much effort correcting all of our curb cuts in town.
Green. Two questions. One relates to the increase in shopping malls on Route 1. We all know that Simon will be increasing the size of Quicker Bridge Mall by 50%, and it'll be done by 2010 with free parking. Did your committee discuss the issue of cost of parking and how the downtown competes or cannot compete with shopping centers with free parking? The other part of my question relates to the dinky, and that is, did the group discuss whether the borough and township should participate in building with the university a parking facility, not using the one that the university is talking about using, but a one that's right there at the dinky current station, participating financially in constructing a new parking garage?
Those are actually both very interesting comments, and no, we did not discuss either one. So wish you come to our table next time and bring those up, because I like those ideas. Chuck?
I expressed some concern in the group about the potential adverse impact of roadway improvements that might occur within the borough, particularly at the intersection of Stockton and Byard Lane and at Nassau and University, where the DOT is contemplating the possibility of building two roundabouts very close one to the other.